Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is another random reaction, and this was by Brightside. I have reacted to this channel before, but it's been a long time, and I think I've only ever done like 1 or 2 videos in the past. A channel similar to this is Kurzagat, and I get a lot of suggestions for that, and I have done a reaction in the past, but their videos get blocked. The reactions I do to his videos or their videos get blocked every single time, and I found out there is like a certain thing the channel had an issue with, like I don't know, I forget, but they basically had to do it, so like they had to make their videos unreactable because another company sort of like profited off it and just stuff like that. But I apologise for that because I do get a lot of suggestions for that channel, but I'm going to try and find a way to get around that soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to be doing more reactions from other channels similar, and this is a huge channel to be fair, and the video is The Truth About the Titanic Has Been Revealed. I'm going to be honest, when it comes to the Titanic, like, I know about it because of the film, of course, as most people probably do nowadays, but I don't actually know much about the actual like shipwreck and like what actually really happened other than seeing the movie. And saying I've seen the movie, I've seen it, but it was probably about 6 years ago now. I've not seen it in such a long time, and it's one of those things that's not very vivid on my memory. And I know I shouldn't really be basing it off just the film, but that is my real knowledge of the Titanic in general. But I know it was. It actually says here, I'm not going to read that. I'm going to just say, actually, no, do I read it? Titanic in full, Royal Mail ship, British luxury. So it was a British, I didn't even know it was a British ship. In 1912, during its maiden voyage en route to New York City from Southampton. What a random ship place to go to, from Southampton to New York, England, killing about 1,500 fucking hell passengers and ship personnel. One of the most famous tragedies in modern history, is inspired in numerous stories, several films and musicals, and has been subject to much scholarship and scientific speculation. So did anyone survive this then? Because I swear in the film people survive. Maybe not. Does anyone survive it? I don't think they do. Because I mean, no, definitely there's no way, because it's in the middle of the ocean. Again, I'm not very educated on this, but I'm not even going to ramble anymore. I'm going to get into this. Hopefully this isn't too much of like a jokey type video, and it is a bit more serious, because I do want to sort of learn about it. Because whilst I know a bit here and there, I don't know much at all. But yeah, also quick shout out to my Instagram and my Twitter, links in the description for those, as well as my second channel. For those interested, the links are in the description. And yeah, but let's just get into this one and see what this video has to say about the Titanic. I swear I've only reacted to this channel once and I can't remember what video it was.
Scientists finally revealed the truth about the Titanic. On April 14th, 1912, at 11:40 p.m., RMS Titanic had a terrible accident that led to its ultimate demise 3 hours later. By 2:20 a.m. in the early morning of April 15th,
right?
The biggest ship of its time had completely disappeared under the ice-cold surface of the Atlantic Ocean. The Titanic took more than 1,500 lives with it as it sank to its watery grave. That's more than 2/3 of all the people on board.
Okay,
the cause of this horrible disaster, leading to so many deaths, was an iceberg the ship crashed into. Or so we've always been told. But scientists' most recent findings have debunked this theory. In this video, we'll tell you the whole truth that has been buried for over 100 years. At 882 feet 9 inches long.
If the iceberg theory has been a lie this whole time, then that is crazy, because for 100 years that's what people thought. Wow, okay. How have I never seen this video before then? Because I swear this would have been big news in the media in general.
92 feet wide, 175 feet tall, and with a usable volume of 46,328 tons. The Titanic seemed indestructible. People could walk for miles along her myriad passages and decks. Even the ship's officers needed over 2 weeks to remember their way around this huge construction. The Titanic had 4 massive smokestacks. Each of them weighed 60 tons, and they extended 81.5 feet above the deck. Such an impressive height was necessary to avoid covering the passengers in 100 tons of soot blown off daily. The smokestacks were placed at a 30-degree angle to look even more astonishing and imposing. No less awe-inspiring was the cost of the ship. Its construction demanded $7.5 million.
And that's obviously 100 years ago. I can't imagine what that would mean in current day currency.
If we take into account modern exchange rates and inflation, In 2016, they would be paying $166 million. Surprisingly, it would turn out cheaper than the production of the world-famous movie Titanic in 1997, which cost $200 million.
Oh shit! Didn't know it was that
Harland and
much.
Wolff Shipyard
For a film, what? They must have made bank back then, like billions,
took
right?
on 3,000
Maybe.
men to build the ship. Even with a huge labor force working 6 days a week from 6 in the morning, it still took 26 months to complete the monumental task. It was a difficult and dangerous work. Imagine doing something at the height of a 20-story building with no safety ropes.
Yeah, man.
But these people needed money to support their families. The builders got £2 a week, which doesn't sound like much, but it was a competitive wage back then. Unfortunately, 8 people died during the building process, and
Jeez.
246 were injured. So it's really hard to fathom that such a complicated mechanism, with all the work, effort, and money spent on its creation, could just sink because of one iceberg. Well, new findings give us reason to believe that the original cause of the catastrophe was not ice, but fire.
Wait, really? Go on.
Journalist Sanaa Maloney has been studying the fate of the Titanic for more than 30 years. It was he who discovered a huge 30-foot-long black spot on the hull of the ship. He noticed it after examining a photo taken before Titanic's departure. The journalist got hold of an album of previously unpublished photographs that showed the construction of the ship and the preparations for her first and last journey. The fire had to have been burning for 3 weeks at a very high temperature before somebody noticed it.
What? Wait, really?
Metallurgy experts are sure that such conditions could have easily weakened the metal, reducing its strength by as much as 75%. That's why the iceberg didn't have any problems tearing a hole in the side of the ship. If not for the fire, it would have been impossible. But the fact that the iceberg hit exactly the spot with the compromised metal is one of the
Oh, so there's still
incredible
the
links
iceberg
in the
then.
chain of the Titanic's
I get it, I
tragic
see.
what-ifs. The management of the project knew
crazy,
about
man.
the fire and the fact that the ship shouldn't have set off on that fateful voyage. But it would have meant bankruptcy for the ship's owners. The thing is that at the time, miners all over the country were on strike, so there was no coal to sustain the Titanic. But the tickets had already been sold out, and other ships had been canceled since everybody wanted to be the first to sail on the largest ship known to mankind. That's why the owners of the Titanic bought all the coal they could find, and even the coal from other ships.
I know this is irrelevant, but the size of the Titanic, I want to see, because obviously that's the biggest ship back then. My VPN. As I say, I got VPN. Biggest cruise ship in the world. Royal Caribbean International. What is all this stuff that's happening? What is... Are you good? I'll turn my VPN off. You know what? Royal Caribbean International size. I know this is probably irrelevant to the video, but I just want to sort of compare it to the size of 1,000. So it was, even nowadays, it would be considered a huge ship. I mean, look at this one, Oasis on off the seas. Oh, so this is like this is a company. Oh, okay, I see. I mean, just look at those though. Symphony on the Seas. This is just longed out. Symphony on the Seas. What? One. Oh my god, look at the size of that, bro. What the fuck? What the fuck? Has anyone watching this video ever been on a cruise ship? I haven't. And this just looks ridiculous. This looks absolutely nuts to me, man. See, I'd be kind of scared, but I guess there's no real need to, is there? But look at this, man. It's ridiculous. I mean, god damn. But you see the size of the Titanic, and it's like 892 meters or whatever it was. So it's even nowadays it would be considered a huge ship.
Canceling the trip seemed out of the question.
It makes sense as to why so many people wanting to go onto it.
So, to conceal the truth, the ship was turned in such a way that the marks from the fire faced away from the docks toward the sea. Therefore, the passengers couldn't see them.
Jesus, man.
Thus, the journey began. The interior of the Titanic was based on that at the Ritz Hotel in London. The grand staircase went down 7 out of the 10 decks on the ship. It was decorated with paintings, bronze cherubs, and oak paneling. The facilities for the first-class passengers included a swimming pool with heated water, a Turkish bath, a gym, a squash court, and a beauty salon.
Look at the gym.
Ladies could even order a stylist to help them get ready for dinner. They had an onboard newspaper called the Atlantic Daily Bulletin. There was even a special place for first-class passengers' dogs. The pets were fed, taken for walks, and could even be trained during the voyage.
That is
the meals for the first class included 13 courses, each with its own wine. They were a big occasion, lasting about 5 hours. There were 1,500 bottles of wine, 20,000 bottles of beer, and 8,000 cigars. Yet, there were no binoculars. Why is this fact worth mentioning? Because having binoculars could have saved the Titanic. Here is another tragic coincidence in the chain of unfortunate events. There were no sonar systems in those times, so to detect threats ahead of a liner, special people kept watch using binoculars. But the binoculars on the Titanic had been locked away in a special compartment. The only person with the key to the locker, Second Officer David Blair, was replaced at the last minute. He was in such a hurry to leave the ship that he forgot to hand the key over to his replacement. This fateful forgetfulness was discovered only 3 days later when the ship was already at sea. If the crew had gotten the binoculars, they would have noticed the iceberg earlier and would have just enough time to avoid the crash. Perhaps the crash could also been avoided if the ship hadn't been breaking the speed limit. They were falling behind schedule, and this was unacceptable as it could ruin the Titanic's reputation. That's why the ship was moving at a speed much higher than the one it was designed for. Another criminal negligence was connected with the lifeboats. In order to contain all the people on board, the Titanic needed about 60 lifeboats. The chief designer, Alexander Carlisle, planned to equip the ship with only 48 boats, but eventually the number was reduced even more to 20.
How is this stuff even allowed? Current day, obviously you wouldn't be able to get away with this, but it just shows how much the world has changed in general. This sort of stuff, no companies would be able to get away with, and if you did something like this, the company would probably just be closed down because, I mean, it's just crazy how, like, there's so many scenarios, like, it was on fire, there was, like, 20 lifeboats when they need 60. They have 1/3 of what they need, and I mean, it goes to show why so many people were killed in this, because they just didn't prepare and they just didn't really think anything through. They were going past the speed limit. It's just like, bro, what is... No binoculars. Like, it's just so unorganized. It's crazy to me.
This was done purely for cosmetic reasons, since the deck looked too cluttered with 40...
Cosmetic... Bro, you're going in the sea. What do you think the fish are going to say? The fish aren't going to look at your boat like, that's an ugly boat, are they? Oh, people are so stupid, man.
These 20 boats could seat only 1/3 of all the people on the ship.
That is
surprisingly,
that's
such a hugely insufficient amount of lifeboats was technically legal. According to the laws of that time, the number of boats depended not on the number of passengers, but on the tonnage of a ship. What's more, at the time of the Titanic's construction, lifeboat drills were standard practice on ocean liners. This way, the crew could prepare passengers for an emergency should it occur. But this type of drill never took place on the Titanic. Captain Edward John Smith canceled the drill scheduled on the morning of the day the Titanic sank.
Wow.
Nobody knows the reasons for his decision, especially considering the fact that other ships had been passing on warnings about ice in the water in that vicinity. Perhaps this is why it took the crew over a half an hour to launch the lifeboats instead of the standard 10 minutes. Some people also blame Captain Smith for allowing the first batch of lifeboats to leave half empty. The first boat, with 65 seats, contained just 27 passengers. Why weren't they packed full? In the beginning, people were reluctant to leave the ship and didn't realize that they were in grave danger. In 2012, researchers found out that Captain Smith had failed his first exam in navigation. Eventually he passed, but who knows? Maybe this too played its own role in the disaster. As the Titanic was sinking, the crew sent several distress signals. However, a ship sailing nearby, the Californian, ignored the emergency flare shot in the sky.
God's sake,
The captain of the Californian later lost his job after this fact came out. But modern researchers have managed to prove his innocence. Well, better late than never. The reason nobody noticed the signals from the Titanic could be due to the phenomenon of light refraction. When layers of cold air are positioned below layers of warmer air, it causes thermal inversion. Thermal inversion, in turn, leads to the light refracting abnormally. In short, all this creates mirages, and such mirages had been recorded by several other ships sailing in that area. Historian Tim Malton is also convinced that light refraction that night could be the reason why the lookouts missed the iceberg completely. Criminal negligence, tragic and unfortunate chain of coincidences, fire or ice, whatever it was, it took the lives of hundreds of people and still keeps the minds of scientists busy to this day. What theory about the catastrophe do you believe? Share your opinion in the comments below. If we've opened your eyes to one of the mysteries you've been...
I'll tell you what, this video really makes you realise how just messed up but people are, but not really, like, not now, but I mean like 100 years ago, like how bad health and safety was, how just, it's just like, you think of this sort of stuff happening in the current day, and it just, no company would be able to get away with this. They'd be shut down, or they'd be fined billions probably, because so many people would be able to sue them, like thousands of passengers on board. And it's just like, bruh, how has this even been able to happen? But it's crazy to me how like they had 20 ships because it didn't look good. You're in the ocean, like what is the issue, man? Like, you're in the ocean, there's no other people that are going to see it. I mean, I assume he sort of means when the people are first getting on board, but still. It's just like, and how did in the Titanic, how did they decide who was able to get on the lifeboats? Was it children and women, I think in the Titanic and the film, but maybe that's a bit misrepresented, but still, man, like, how to decide that? It's just, I actually might have to watch that film again, because it is one of the legendary films that everyone has to see like a few times at least. And I'm not really into films, but it's one of those films I did really enjoy from what I remember, but enjoy in terms of like, it's just a crazy sort of thing to watch and like experience. Yeah, the Titanic sank, but our heart sank when we found out that Jack could have lived if Rose could just scoot over. I want to jump back in time to see what really happened. Wait, the movie Titanic cost more than this shit? That's actually crazy, isn't it? Who directly jumped to read comments? In my eyes, the owner money was more important than the lives of a lot of people. I mean, you could kind of relate that to how people are current day, but luckily there's now health and safety measures where you just have to make sure it's 100% safe before you set sail, etc. My great-great-grandfather had a ticket for the Titanic, but he couldn't go on it because he overstepped and missed it. Fucking hell, is that true? That's not true. If that's true, God's plan starts flying. That's wild, you know. That's crazy, because when you consider that would have meant he wouldn't be alive. See, I deep that sort of stuff, and that's like Harvey Johnson, this guy commenting this, wouldn't even be here nowadays, like now, if his grandfather didn't oversleep. That's nuts to me. I pray whoever reads this becomes successful. Brightside, do you have any idea how much damage you just did to those who are actually trying to teach people about Titanic? What does that mean? Oh, because it's conspiracy theories. I get it. Let me stop with the facts, get to the show. Music kind of scary. Yeah, that music is legendary YouTube music, isn't it? I always hear it in these kinds of videos, but I enjoyed this. Again, some people don't like conspiracy theories. I find them quite fun, but end of the day, I just watch this stuff to just to see different perspectives, really. But hopefully you enjoyed this reaction, and until next time, like, subscribe, peace.